Take a breath. Okay, time now for the second interview for today. It is election season, and that means that there's lots of fun. I just love this time of year. Actually, every 4 years or so when this happens, because we get to sit down with a lot of local folks and talk about how they want to make the world a better place. Joined live in the studio today, Jessica Sanar from the Wild Rivers Outpost, and then sitting across from me, we've got Valerie Starkey, candidate for the Board of Supervisors, Del Norte style, District 2.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me today.
So first off, tell us a little bit about yourself.
A little bit about myself. I was raised here in Del Norte County. My family moved here in 1974, so about 10 years after the tsunami. My dad was a CHP officer, and so we transferred up here. And was raised here. After I graduated high school, I moved to Sonoma County to attend school and ended up getting a job and subsequent career with the Sonoma County Probation Department. And that's where I spent the next 30 years. After I retired, I wanted to come back to this community that I love and be a part of it and help do whatever I could to make it the place that was so near and dear to me as a child, and where my parents still lived, where my sister lives. My nephew now has moved back home, so it's this place where it's in a community, and I love it, and so that's where I came back to.
What in the world possessed you then to take that that drive, that desire to make the community better? Why Board of Supervisors?
Well, there's several answers to it.
Okay.
So if we have a little bit of time.
We got a little bit of time.
Okay. One is when I was a probation officer, you're that for 30 years.
Wow.
You spend day in and day out helping people, and it becomes a very rewarding career. So, somebody calls you, they've got some sort of situation that they need help with, and you're able to help them. And sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not, but you still participated in that assistance. So after I retired, I did a few things. I became a chaplain with the Sonoma County Chaplaincy, and it was rewarding. I went through the academy, became a chaplain, and so when somebody passed away, either by homicide or suicide or natural causes, law enforcement would call us out, and we could go out and be with the family on the worst day of their life.
Oh, wow.
And, again, that was a very rewarding thing for me, because if you have that capacity to do those types of jobs, you should. That's my belief. So I did that for a couple years. I started missing Crescent City, so I came back to Crescent City, and I'm missing it still. I'm missing helping the people. I'm missing doing something that's really worthwhile. And I started working on Jerry Himminson's campaign. And Jerry, I feel, is a very honorable man. And so I would do little things. I'm not going to act like I was some big, leader in this campaign by any means. But
puppet master.
I would show up at his office prior to him going to a meeting, and so I could go and take pictures of him at the meeting and kind of promote what he actually does for this community. And I remember him getting a call, and it was a little old lady on Vipond, and she was upset because somebody had thrown a pair of sneakers. You know how they tie the shoelaces and throw them over the phone line. And Jerry's like, all right, Margaret. I don't think Margaret was her name, but all right, I got this. And Jerry made a couple calls, and within 25 minutes, the shoes were down.
Oh, wow. And
I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I know it's not a big, huge solution, but somebody called and was concerned about something. Jerry solved the problem. And so that's when it first started attracting me. And then it just became more about, I love this community. I want to see this community be the best that it can be. And what can I do to help us get there or help us maintain where we're at?
Okay.
So coming back to Del Norte County from Sonoma County, I'm guessing that since your family was here, you did come back and forth for visits and everything. But coming back here to live, what were your impressions of the community coming back here to live? How did it change? Did it change?
Well, it's one of those things where you don't notice a huge change if you're constantly part of it. And so you're right. I was up here 3, 4, 5 times a year.
Yeah.
More so after I retired, I'd come up and stay a month at a time. So the changes were minimal to me. One thing, when you live in a larger area, you're exposed to a much more broader mindset in a way, where so many more diverse opinions. And when you live in a small rural area, it seems to be a little bit more concentrated one way or another. And so that was kind of like, oh, okay, I'm back. I got to kind of watch, because I'm a loving, let's fix everybody kind of person. And some people are like, no, they don't need to be fixed. And and so that was an adjustment for me. To come back into that, but I'm finding my ground. It's the pendulum, it swings, all this way, and pretty soon it kind of centers in the middle, and I think I'm getting there to that place.
So, what sorts of changes would you like to see brought to the Board of Supervisors?
To the actual Board of Supervisors, I really would like to see cohesive working relationships, and because I get that there are certain ones that get under your skin. But as a professional, you need to maintain your professionalism. And, when I was a probation officer, trust me, that there were people that you worked with that weren't the best people. And those were the defense attorneys. No, I'm kidding. But, but every day, right, I would walk into court and you have the defense attorneys wanting something and you want your district attorneys wanting something else. And here the probation officer is this unbiased body that needs to just do what's best for the community. And so what I would like to see is some more of that, where I get it, you're passionate about this particular issue, and you're passionate on your side, but what can we do together to come up with the best possible solution while being civil to each other? So that's one thing I'd like to see. I do believe, I don't have much criticism for the actual Board of Supervisors. Now having jumped into this race and know how vulnerable you have to be to put yourself out there to run for an office.
You're right.
I certainly have a lot more empathy for all of the people in this race that are doing this with me.
What sorts of things have you discovered being a candidate?
Well, you get nightly phone calls from people, which I absolutely love. That part I love. But you get people wanting you to be the voice for their beef and their issue. And while I understand that, I don't necessarily think that I could help you support. I met with a lady the other day and we had coffee and it was great. She had heard me on the Sunday show, and she really loved what I had to say about the substance abuse issues and how we could address them. And so, talking with her, getting kind of to the core of what's going on with her, and she ended up wanting me to be the one that did all the work, and which is fine, but I'm going to collaborate with you. You can't just say this is what needs to get done and then I just run with it. I mean, we need to kind of collaborate together, and we need to have this, working relationship so that we're both in this together, that you have an invested interest, that you're not just kind of setting me up to go get something accomplished. Right. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
no, that does make sense.
I was going to ask if you're familiar with that, the nightly phone calls and the people wanting you to be the voice.
Do people
of it?
call you every night? Because they want you to run a story, right?
Yes.
And they want you to draw attention to something.
They want me to be, want me to
be the voice for their
voice for
right?
their cause,
right? But they don't want, if they can't stand up and be, and I'm going to say it too, that gets into a tricky situation, right?
It does. It's kind of a tightrope that you have to walk, or that I have to walk anyway. There's reporting on something, and then there's advocating for something, and I don't feel it's my job to I don't know.
See, and I think I love what you just said is that, there's reporting and advocating. Maybe your job is to report. I see my job, if I am elected here, is to advocate.
Sure.
So, that's where you have the combinations, though, right? Where you're able to say, okay, you reported it, and now with us together, I'm going to advocate for you,
right,
and we're going to move forward. We're going to move this issue forward.
Yeah.
But as a county, as a supervisor, how would you go about deciding who to advocate for? Are you advocating for, one constituent in your district who wants one thing that maybe may not be the best thing for the rest of the county? Or, how would you differentiate the needs of the constituents in your district with your constituents countywide?
Right. Okay. So that is where it's going to be tricky. Yeah, exactly. We were giving her some hand signals here. No, but think, okay, and again, I know I'm going to keep going back to because it's the analysis that I can best do. All right. I get an offender referred to me from court, and let's say it's vehicular manslaughter. Okay. And so, I meet with him and he tells me, I was intoxicated and I didn't mean to do it. I need substance abuse treatment and I need this. So part of my job is to advocate for him. Now I've got the victim's family saying he needs to burn in wherever, he needs to be punished to the fullest extent of the law. We cannot tolerate this, and this cannot happen. So I've got that person, okay? And that's my job at this point, is to do both. So then what I have to do is bring in the law, bring in the logic, bring in all the other parts of it. And so when we finally have looked at all the issues, we've looked at the offender side, the victim side, and the law, the rules of the court, and there's all these different laws and rules and guidelines that you have to go by. Then you come up with a logical conclusion that it may not make everybody happy, but at least what I'd like to say passes the straight face test. You can stand up in front of the court with a straight face and be confident with the solution that you came up with. So in these particular cases, I've been getting, one of my favorite things so far in doing this campaign is I get these little note cards in the mail. People writing me, which is so incredibly sweet and kind, and I love it. And one lady wrote that she wants a better effort on recycling. So in my response to that, number one, I got to learn everything I need to know about recycling, which is a lot.
And it's changing.
2 hours with Ted Ward. You're up to speed.
Okay, good. Yeah, hook a girl up because I need Ted Ward. But that's what I'm going to need. I'm going to need a lot of community input because, I'll know law enforcement and I know probation, but I'm going to have to rely on so many people for all the other things. Now, can I get the job done? Yes. I learned how to read autopsy reports. I know how to read big financial embezzlement cases. So, yes, I can get there, but I definitely don't know everything about everything.
This is interesting. I just want to point out to the listeners, you've got, what is this, a folder? You've got actual cards that
people write me, and I go to my mailbox,
cool.
and it's the sweetest thing. I love this so much. Just like these little encouragements. This one lady's having a problem. There's little dogs in her yard, and she wants to keep the big dogs off her property. And, right now I have no authority whatsoever to go and solve these problems, but I certainly wouldn't mind. You know what I mean? That's the kind of stuff. Call me. Let's figure this out. What can we do? So
I want to just, if I may, I want to piggyback on your previous question about balancing the needs of the district with the needs of the county in general. And this is something I like to ask every candidate is, and I think I know what your answer will be just from what you've said so far, but how do you, another dichotomy or possibly dichotomous sort of relationship is between what you want to accomplish personally, politically in an office, and representing your constituency at large. So it's the difference between, like Roger Gitlin spending all the time going after SB 54 or something like that. He's bearing a cross. It's this big deal. All the, you can argue about whether or not it was, that's time well spent in the Flynn Center, but that was his thing. And I imagine there were a number of constituents in his district that were like, come on, quit messing with that. Let's get on with the business of Delaware County. How do you balance that then, if you have an agenda and your constituents have an agenda?
See, I don't have an agenda.
Okay.
And I'm self-proclaiming myself the world's worst politician because I don't have platforms, I don't have agendas. Because I really do believe that I am the voice for the people. Now, I'm going to have opinions. Absolutely, I will have opinions. And if those opinions then are in line with the majority of the people that want that represented, then that's fine.
What if they aren't?
What if they're not? Then that's absolutely fine too.
You would vote against your own personal
absolutely, I would. Yes.
Okay.
I don't make promises, but I absolutely would. I mean, of course, it would have to pass my straight face test, right? So the SB 54 situation, that tore me up inside, to be honest, because I'm a big believer that we all have a right to be here. Delaware County is home to all of us. And while I agree that people shouldn't be here illegally, then let's come up, because we're a community, then let's figure out a way that the people that are living here right now, how can we help you become legal residents? That's my job.
Okay.
So yes, I identify that there's a problem, but I want to step in and come up with a solution, because you belong here. And we need to make sure that our community members have a sense of belonging and not just fitting in. And I think that that's something that's extremely important to encourage everyone to have a say, to have a voice, to be a part of the solutions. So
yeah, that's the end, and that's actually it.
Was that the answer you thought I was going to say?
No, I thought you were going to say it's a compromise, it's a balancing act, just as you would, the role that you had in probation. But you actually came out, no, I'm here to represent my constituency.
Oh, absolutely,
Right. Yeah.
absolutely. Because I'm not always going to agree. Like you see sometimes, and they're like, oh man, I might not be able to say it in my own words, but I will then represent. Talk about when a defendant, I'm talking with him and he says something like his wife deserved to be slapped because the dinner wasn't on the table.
Oh, geez.
Well, I'm not going to, that's not my opinion. That is absolutely not my opinion.
Sure.
But what he's wanting to relay to the court is that exact statement. And I'll work with him about, like, are you sure you want to say it that way? But if that's how he wants it relayed, then that's what I do. And I think that that's a super important part of this, is that we can't make it about us. We can't make it about what's just near and dear to our hearts. It has to be about what's going to make this community cohesively working together, where we all feel like we belong here.
Interesting. Good. Yeah.
Well, maybe you can talk about what your job as a probation officer was, because it seems like, or maybe you could talk about that afterwards, but it seems different than, say, a sheriff's deputy or a police officer. Like, you talk about representing the needs of both the defendant and the victims, and a balancing act there. So yeah, I just was wondering, and also what does that perspective, what kind of perspective does that give you when it comes to public safety as a whole?
Right. Well, and you got to thank you for that. That's a good question, because as a probation officer, you're kind of charged with a lot of different responsibilities. And I don't know about probation here, but I can talk about probation in a larger area, Sonoma County. You're charged with community protection. You're charged with rehabilitating the offender. You're charged with making sure the victim feels whole. You're, all these different aspects that you have to kind of think, and you're going and you're drawing all this information so that when you make that recommendation, or when I decide to go out and arrest somebody who's violated their probation, that it is actually in their best interest to do that. Now, I was the kind of probation officer where most of the time they thanked me. They knew that they had screwed up, and I was holding them accountable, which I believe you need to do. I think you hold people accountable, but you also celebrate their successes. Attending a drug graduation program is so rewarding. And when they stand up there and they thank their probation officer, of all people, for arresting them to getting them to this place that they needed to be, is incredibly moving. So I think it's one of those things where you don't have to pick a side. You don't have to look at one thing just one way. It's way more important for, because I'm very empathetic to the offenders too. I mean, a lot of times these individuals, they've had a horrific upbringing.
Yeah.
They didn't just all of a sudden one day wake up and say,
break bad, right?
Yeah. And so you have to kind of look for the fact that
I've been looking for a way to use that.
I know, your Breaking Bad scenario, I get it. Which is a good series, so.
That is a good series.
If you guys need some Valentine's Day's ideas tonight, Breaking Bad.
Binge Breaking Bad. Happy Valentine's Day.
Break Bad and chill.
Exactly. So I feel like we need to just bring everybody together.
Right.
And one of the things I said at the True North Forum the other day, and I really believe it, was that when we pull people together, it's got to include the tribes, it's got to include the Board of Supervisors and the elderly and the youth and our mentally ill and our homeless. And a lot of times we forget that they are part of our community. And in order for us to actually come up with a solution that's going to work, well, we need their buy-in.
Yeah.
We need their input.
Yeah.
What's going to be best for you? And, you know, and if, well, I just want to live off the system and not have to do anything, well, that's not going to work, you know. But I love to talk to the homeless people. Don't think I'm weird, but because
No,
I
you
feel...
should.
I don't
know
think
how many
that's weird. I think anybody should.
And
Okay.
I think more of us should, actually. I mean, so many conversations we have about the homeless issue in the Flynn, in United Methodist, and who's not in the room?
The
homeless.
people.
Right.
And so when I always like, hey, what would be best for you? Like, you know, if we came up with a solution here, what's that look like for you? Most of the time they want something very simple. You know, they want a charging station for their phones. They want some place where they can feel they can leave their property without it being stolen.
Yeah.
And I believed also is that to gain some trust, gain some rapport, so that they don't think that we're just the system trying to come in and force them into something. We need to get them to be part of the solution so that then the solution will work.
Right.
So,
Wow. So, I'm sorry. Do you have something? Okay. You got something? I got something. You got something? Go ahead.
You go first.
Okay. Specific issues then. I mean, because we've been talking a lot of like bigger things, and everybody so far this year, every candidate has really talked about the need for the board to kind of come together. And after the last 4/8 years, definitely that kind of working out.
Right.
And so we can come together and work, and there are a lot of great examples of this dynamic, people coming together and sort of circling around finally, state and locally, Sacramento and here with Last Chance Grade, and it seems like everybody's pulling in the same direction now finally, and achieving some things. So there's a lot to be said for that compromise, that coming together. Over, like I guess above that, what sort of specific issues here in Del Norte County need that? What do we need to come together over and address? And yeah, homelessness or things like that. We've talked with about housing, other things. But what are the issues on your front and back burners that you'd like to bring to light?
okay. So, I mean, I need to address the roads, right? I think that we are very, very fortunate to have Congressman Huffman and Senator Mike McGuire and Assemblyman Wood. Is it Assemblyperson Wood or
Assembly
It's
member is what I've
assemblyman.
heard.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah.
I just want to be so politically correct here. I went to the CTC meeting.
Yeah.
It was so interesting
It
and so
was.
fascinating, and I loved that energy in the room. And when Fran Ehrman, the chair of the CTC, stood up and said, "You need to know how hard your senator is working for you. The reason all of this is happening is because Mike McGuire marched into my office and demanded this." And if you know Mike at all, have you guys met him?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I mean, he's my baby daddy's best friend. So a little bit of he's my ex-husband, but I hate to call him my ex-husband because it sounds so like past, because he's currently in my life, a very important part of my life.
baby daddy, but that's
All right, so he's my baby daddy. But so
Wait,
I know.
wait a minute.
What is that not okay to say?
No, I'm just confused.
Mike is
McGuire-
not my baby daddy. No.
Thank you.
No.
That's what I was confused
Richard Starkey is who I was married to, and Mike and him worked at the television station together in Santa Rosa, and Mike went on to become the mayor and the board of supervisors, and now he's our senator. But if you know him and you know his tenacity, he
God.
gets things done.
Yeah.
And we are so fortunate to have him. And that we were at my son's graduation in 2014 down in Sonoma County. And Mike was running for state senate at that time. And my parents are down there. He's trying to get the 2 votes from my folks. And so he's coming up to them and saying, and I'm going to come up to Del Norte County. I'm not going to forget about you guys. And, this is on the heels, I think it was Noreen Evans that was here before. And she forgot all about us. At least that was the impression. And so my parents are like, yeah, okay. They voted for him because they felt like they had to. But And one thing my dad has said a couple times is that, you know what, that guy has done what he said he was going to do.
Yeah.
And we are so blessed to have him. We're so very, very grateful to have him.
And I remember last election night too, when he and Huffman were both running, and it's like they were the first returns to come in statewide, and it was like all of a sudden, boom, they've got a 70%, they've got like a 50 point margin right off the gate, right out the gate. I'm like,
well, because I even said to my baby daddy, I said, because they always go to Mike has this election night thing, and so they always go to it, and I'm like, are you guys nervous? Do you think Mike's... And he's like, I know. Mike... he's like, Mike made
be in bed by 9 tonight.
billions of dollars for the fire victims.
Right.
You know what I mean? This guy, when he puts his mind to it, he gets it done.
Yeah.
And so I think, I'd love to see him go on to be, bigger things. But I love him as our state senator.
I want to bottle his
I want to bottle it too.
Friggin'... Oh my God.
I know. And he's always so positive. Every once in a while he'll say a little something, and I'm like, oh man.
Even when he curses.
I know, like hot damn. Right? Oh, Mike.
Okay. All right,
we're digressing.
Specific issues, things that you'd like to see. You'd like to bring this the spirit of togetherness here and dealing with the issues that face Del Norte County. What's out there that we have to? And I'm interested in things like like potholes and street lights and stuff like that.
Yeah, and all those things are super important.
Making the trains run on time.
Yeah, and I hear you on that, and I think that we absolutely need to get more collaborative on that. My opponent talks about relationships and how she has these relationships and she doesn't want those to fade, and I just want the voters to know that just by nature of being raised here, I have these relationships too. I went to church camp with the head of the road department. The principal of the high school was my second grade boyfriend.
Everybody knows a Starkey.
No, I'm not a Starkey from here.
You're not it's a different Starkey?
Yeah, I'm a Knowlton.
Oh, well, everybody knows a Knowlton, too.
Yeah, I know.
Knowlton?
Yeah.
Yep.
My dad was a CHP. My sister, Charlene, is she's a 6th grade teacher.
Mm-hmm.
We did fairy godmother. I think that's how you know Charlene, is we do that fairy godmother program.
How are you related to Derek? I know him through my kids.
Oh, Derek is awesome. That is my nephew. That's Charlene's son. And then my nephew, Zachary Knowlton, just moved back. He had gone to school, and him and his wife got their master's degree, and now they're back up here teaching.
Oh, wow. Good. Okay.
Yeah. But what was the question again? I'm sorry.
Just about specific sort of nuts and bolts issues that the county needs to address.
Right. There's always going to be some sort of challenge. And so I'm kind of, like I said, I'm a bad politician. I don't have an agenda. I don't have a platform. But I think that we need to as they come up. And so, but you have to be proactive too. You have to start looking a little bit down the future to stop some of these things.
Yeah.
But I do believe that, early childhood education, if that could be something, right? Now, is that going to be my only thing? No, but I think that is so incredibly important just because the numbers are there to support that incarceration rates are directly related to early childhood education.
Mm-hmm.
So if we know that, right, we can do that. Now, one thing is that we live in a super small community, and I get that we don't have a ton of funding, but we don't might not have the resources, but we have a lot of resourceful people. And I think drawing on that and getting these people together to collaborate and to come up with ideas, simple things like, Aunt Betty's going to do an after reading program, at the library, and so every day these kids are getting read to, little things that we can do that can make a difference in the bigger picture.
How can the Board of Supervisors facilitate things like that?
Well, the Board of Supervisors can support the funding for the various things that need to be done. That's one thing. They hold the purse strings of this county, and so to kind of look around and say that, if we have, this needs to be funded, we have to look about, okay, so we don't have the $5,000 to fund that program, but let's look around what hasn't been effective, what we've been throwing money at that's still just throwing the money at it, right? Maybe we need to divert those funds over here to a program that may or may not work, and I'm not going to guarantee anything, but I also believe we should be trying. We should be trying new approaches. Failure is part of the process. So, and I'm fine. If I fail, I'm fine. I actually, it's because I tried.
Yeah.
We went someplace. We'll just keep going.
And now you learn.
And we learned
that.
from that failure.
Right.
What else can we get from that and go on?
12:36 the time. You're tuned to KFUG Community Radio. Paul Kurtz with you. Community Service, the show, joined live in the studio by Jessica Sanar from the Wild Rivers Outpost, and we're speaking with Valerie Starkey, who for some reason wants to be on the Board of Supervisors.
I do. I do. Sign me up.
Well, I had a question from Jessica
Goudard?
Nimi.
Oh.
Nimi.
Oh.
She is something that she posted on Facebook. She wants to know what your criteria is about decisions for spending public funds or repaying government loans. Yeah.
Well,
And she must really care because Jessica is currently in
Humboldt County?
No, Jordan. She's traveling. So yeah.
Holy
that's
crap.
interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know this gal.
I want to be in Jordan.
Well,
No,
okay.
I don't.
Read the question again so I know I have it right.
What's her criteria about decisions for spending public funds or repaying government loans? And she adds, because we need a different type of public service for our community, not self-interest, bullying, or fiscal entitlement.
Ooh, interesting.
Okay. So my belief is that's directly related to my opponent. Lori, there's documentation out there that she owes over $100,000 to the tri-agency. And the tri-agency is essentially stymied because they can't go any further until those loans get paid back. And then there's also that documentation out there that indicates that she went to Washington, D.C. in October of 2018 and asked that those very notes be forgiven. So if the question is related directly to that, then my opinion on that's self-serving. That's not what's in the best interest of Del Norte County. Mm-hmm. And I think that we definitely need somebody in there that if you owe the money, pay it back. You know?
Yeah, but I think more specifically, if you were in there, is that something that you would go after? Or that you see like the next Board of Supervisors with you, maybe try to go collect that money for the tri-agency?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, I think that is a responsibility of this community. I mean, they were there to relying upon their leaders to follow through with that. Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't get a pass. Do you get a pass if you owe money to somebody and they just say, you don't have to pay it back for 12 years?
For those 12 years, I do.
Well, I'm just saying that. So I do believe that if, and we have to be really careful because now this particular individual is making financial decisions for our county. Mm-hmm. And I think that I'm a big believer in honesty and transparency. And if you're just honest about it, tell us what's going on, and then okay, be transparent. I've law enforcement all my life, right? Mm-hmm. I have a certain ethical code, and I don't think violating that code of conduct that you're kind of charged with as a Board of Supervisors should be acceptable. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's really all I have to say on that, though.
Okay. You mentioned during the forum that you are a CASA.
Yes.
How long have you been part of that organization? And do you feel like, because CASA works specifically with children that are going through the not the juvenile justice system, but the court system, the foster children. Mm-hmm. And a lot of there aren't, I've heard that there's trouble finding local placements for foster children. Just yesterday, and this is homeless students, but just yesterday we were told, at the school board meeting, it was said that the number of homeless students in Del Norte County is now roughly 240.
Oh wow!
My gosh.
Yeah,
wow,
it's increased, and
I'm so sorry to hear that.
So, as a CASA advocate, you've got kind of a unique insight into that world. As a supervisor, how would you support that program, and how would you support foster youth in this county in general?
Right. You got to understand. I've wanted to be a CASA since I knew about the program, but it was always a conflict because I was a probation officer, and a lot of times we had dual jurisdiction cases. So I taught at the academies down in Sonoma County. I taught our aspect of what probation's role is with CASAs. So I was always kind of a part of it. And then when I moved up here and was looking around like, how can I help? How can I help? I decided to be a CASA up here. And you're given, what it essentially is that you're assigned children, either just one child or there's families. So I initially got 3 children. And you are their advocate. You're making sure that the school system is implementing what needs to be done for them. I hold the education rights for 2 of my kids. And so I am their advocate, their educational advocate. And I make sure when I attend all the IEPs, I make sure that whatever needs that they're offering, that they're matching those services with specifically what my kids need. And then the CASA also then makes sure that they're kind of the one consistent person in their life. With one of my CASA kids, he or she, I can't talk specifically, has been to 10 homes.
Oh my God!
I've known her or him, and it is you're that one consistent person. Like she has only had one CASA, and so the importance of that is having that stable adult relationship that has your back. That and she doesn't always like me, because I still hold people accountable, and so I just don't let people get away with behaviors just because I love them. But as a board member, how I would support that is that I would, again, if there was funding available, that we could make sure that the CASAs, the board of directors at CASA, Christine Slutty is the
she's the executive director, and she's amazing.
She's amazing, and she fights so hard for these kids, and she advocates so hard for them, and so I would really do my part to make sure that program is supported. And with the foster care situation here, it's broken everywhere. So I'm not sitting here going to say, well, Delaware County is the only one that has it wrong. That's not true. Right. It's a very broken system all around. And I don't know how to solve that. And if I did, trust me, I wouldn't wait till I was a board supervisor to solve a problem like this. What I know that I can do to help is to be one small part in a child's life to get them through navigate them through this really terrible time. They love their parents still, regardless of how much abuse has been imposed upon them or how, neglected they've been. 9 times out of 10, these children want to go home to be with their parents. It's what they know. And so being able to kind of be there for them while somebody in a robe in the bench is telling them, no, your parents are not good people, you're not going home to them. Being able to be that other side and talk to them about your mom is a very lovely person. She just can't take care of you right now. And we need to get your mom some help. Break it down for them so that
you humanize the whole process.
And that doesn't mean that your mom doesn't love you.
Absolutely. Because and the bottom line is a lot of people will think, oh, well, how could she love her kids and then choose drugs, right? That's not true. Addiction is so powerful
and insidious, and
yes, and so it's like these judgments. I mean, it may be true for some, and so we have to be very careful. But for the most part, people do love their children. They're just so addicted to whatever it is. It might even just be men. It might be drugs. It might be something else. And it's about protecting that kid and making everything as okay as possible, making sure that they have the services, the dental work, the shots, and all the different things that they need. Are we going to be successful? It's case by case, right?
Right, yeah.
So, my role as a CASA is just to do the very best that I can do for these kids. I'll advocate for them. I stand up in court. If I disagree with the social worker, I have no problem saying, I don't agree with you. He's made a point, Your Honor, but this is what I see. And currently the social worker, he entertains me more often than not because I have opinions about a lot of stuff when it comes to this, but I'm like, I don't think that's how we should be doing it. And he's like, well, this is how we're doing it. But anyway, we have some really good discussions and get to some solutions. So.
Okay, I want to get back larger picture county again then. Looking forward, like in the future and development and people continuing to live here viably, is tourism like the peg to hang our hat on as far as economic development?
I think it's a component. I absolutely think it's something that even back 30 years ago when I worked for the Beacon Burger.
Oh,
cool! Did you ever eat there?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I miss their pink ladies and their tater tots so bad. But Betty and Stan Stanovich, that was the summer months is what they made their money for the entire year.
Yeah.
So this isn't something new, right? Tourism is something that we should capitalize on while we've got it. I would like to see us expand a little bit about that. Down by the pier, why don't we have ice cream stands down there, or hot dog stands or something like that we can shut down in the winter months or only open on days that is really bright and sunny. But let's keep, highlighting where our most beautiful parts are and make some money for those summer months. So I do agree with that. I think that it is not our only economic driver. I think that we definitely need to start lean into what things are now. And I think that's a lot of times, we need to just only have small mom and pop businesses. Those are helpful. Those are nice to have, and I want to encourage us to have those. I posted something on Facebook the other day, and I'm a big believer in it. Is we have 27,000 people in this county. If 27,000 people went and spent $30 a month at Sherry Johnston's store, she'd make close to $1 million in 1 month. And that's only $30, right? Still order off Amazon, still do this, still do that. But let's have an earmarked amount of money that we spend locally every single month to keep these small businesses going. Because now when these small businesses are successful, they're paying more taxes.
Yeah.
And then they are
hire locals,
sponsoring, they're hiring locals, they're sponsoring kids' basketball teams, that sort of thing. So, but I do want to lean into some possible other solutions. And that can be a work from home program. Consulting is a big thing. So if we could get people up here living that are consultants and they can do that remotely, then I'd like to see that sort of thing happening. We need to have a more attractive nightlife type thing for the younger generation. And we could do things, and it's simple. We have to think small town. We have to think rural, and we can't, bring in, nightclubs that are successful in Las Vegas to Donner County. It's just not going to work. It might be fun for a while, but I'd be down to go for a while, but so we have to. And one thing that I've been saying for a long time is that we really need to start identifying this next group of leaders. We need to start looking at our 20, 30, 40 somethings and saying, okay, what we need to get you on board here, and we need to get you charged up because we need your input and your ideas of what Del Norte County is going to look like 25, 30 years down the road. So that's a big push for me too. Our fishing industry is still a very profitable industry. I think that we need to make sure that we protect or we at least support those industries. The Dungeness crab industry has a little bit of some things going on right now because of entangled whales. And so I think that we need to make sure our community's educated about that and our community supports our fishermen. And that's just, writing those letters, making sure. I know that they just had a meeting with Senator McGuire, might have been yesterday or the day before, and he was very responsive to them and was willing to listen and willing to help. But the other thing is that we can't just completely rely on Senator McGuire. We've got to start having some other voices out there too. And I know he's our guy and he's good and he'll help us, but we have to make sure that we're making the noise too. So having your family having a long history in Del Norte County, are we beyond? Every once in a while, Chris Howard talks about a resource-based economy, and it seems like we're beyond that. In a county where close to 80% of lands are off the public tax rolls, is it time to turn? Fishing is. You talk about Dungeness crab, but Dungeness crab is also for several years declining weights in the crab and contamination that happens because of warming in the sea. It can be argued that that's kind of on its last claw.
as an industry. Is it time to turn away? Is it possible even for us to turn away from? You're saying lean into things like the fishing industry, which is a resource-based.
I think I'm saying lean into more of the technology things.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Is
Okay.
like, let's lean into some of the changes that we could possibly make that are outside of what our natural resources have been.
Gotcha.
So, but I think that all the while we support what is current. You know, I would love feedback on that. Like, what are some of your thoughts on what you think would work here in Del Norte County if we get away from resource-based?
Haven't a clue. I have no idea. That's
Don't
why.
vote, Paul.
Don't vote for me. No. If you see me on a ballot, do not check that box. I mean, tourism is big. That's great. I'm not exactly thrilled with that. You know,
Right, exactly.
I would like it to seem. You know, I'm not about more. I just want better.
Right.
You know, and more is not better. I think we've reached the point just in the world in general where more is no longer better.
Right.
So,
but
yeah,
like,
not
look
sure.
at what Seaquake has done, right? They came in and they started out with just some pizzas and some beer.
Yeah.
And they've turned into wonderful food. I mean, Speedy is one of the most amazing chefs ever.
And surprisingly, like, not expensive. Not as expensive as this food should cost elsewhere.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah,
exactly.
I'm surprised by that. Yeah.
But like they're bottling their beer now, or they're canning their beer, and the beer is getting sent out. You know what I mean? We actually have a beer distributing center, kind of, you know, to some degree, right here. I mean, that's all getting in the brew house. They're bottling that, and so then they're creating that interest and that, you know, revenue and everything. So if we think along those lines, you know, what else could we do? You know, could we do a home-based bakery that becomes world-renowned? I mean, I know that when we collectively put our brains together, we should be able to come up with something. Have a big, huge planning session where, you know, no idea is stupid kind of thing, and we post it all on there, and then we narrow something down. I do believe we need something else.
It's interesting, though. I mean, that kind of model that you're talking about is sort of taking that mom-pop approach and just kicking it worldwide that way, then.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, somebody had mentioned to me the other day, and I just don't know the logistics of it, but like an Amazon distribution center here. Now, I don't know that our transportation's going to do that. So, I mean, so I thought that was a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
But it's still an idea, right? From that idea, can we come up with some other idea? And that's the thing. It's like, let's just throw it out there. And one of them, we'll figure it out. And so, I mean, I hope that we do come up with something. I don't want to be just a retirement community.
Right.
Which looks like we might be if that's the thing. But I want some young people back in this community and breathing life back into it, raising their children here. Being raised in Del Norte County is probably one of the best locations you could possibly raise a child.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah,
I really believe that.
It was having kids that brought me back here. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now it's time to raise kids. Let's get out of the city. Let's go back to Del Norte County.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know each other. You know, I'd get stopped by the police, and my dad would know about it before I even got home.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
That's small town.
Walking down the aisle in Safeway, and some stranger says hi to my my preschooler and my kindergartner, and it doesn't alarm me. I go, "Who's that?" "Oh, that's from so and so from school," and they're like,
Right.
"Okay, all right, that's,
Yeah,
I like that."
exactly. But in a bigger city, that might freak you out a
Yeah,
bit.
that's like, no, call the cops. 12:54 the time. We've got just a few minutes left. I want to remind everybody you're tuned to KFUGLP Crescent City 101.1 FM, online kfugradio.org. Live in the studio, Jessica Sanar from the Wild Rivers Outpost and Valerie Starkey, candidate for the Board of Supervisors in Del Norte, District 2. So we're getting close to wrapping up here. You got something?
Not really.
No, that's okay. So then the wrap-up question that we ask everybody is there something that we didn't ask you that you'd like to make sure gets said?
I just want to make sure people make an informed decision on who to vote for. And I've said that from the beginning. If I want you to know who I am, what I am about, how I will work, my work ethic, my mistakes. I think you need to know it all about me, because in knowing that, then you can be confident in what you get. You know, I don't want to sell you a bag of goods and make this, you know, look all fluffy and pretty. and then you're like, oh, what did we get ourselves into? So if you have any questions, if you're questioning anything that, about me and about what I will do for you, what I can do for you, then I want you to reach out to me and let's talk about it. And again, at night I get phone calls, and one guy decided he wanted to just text me. And then he's like really excited that somebody texted him back, which was cute. But so that's my thing, is that I really want to make sure that you know what you're getting with me. I will be a hard worker. I will be thorough. I would be way too thorough for you, because that's just, I can't say something without having done some research on it. I think that's super important. I'm not a go along to get along kind of individual. I want to make sure that I've looked at all aspects of the situation before concluding what is the best for Del Norte County.
Excellent. Wow. So campaign things, anything coming up in the next few days? I know we've got another forum happening, next week? Is that
Wednesday,
right?
yeah.
Oh, the 19th for the real estate
realtors, yeah.
Realtors, yes.
Are you out knocking on doors?
I have, and that's been so much fun. And it's
there are worse districts to do that in.
I know. I know. I heard Kevin earlier, and he was talking about you have to hike up hills, and it's all flat land.
You're walking down Pebble Beach, knocking on.
Yeah. But it's so kind. People are so kind. I mean, they invite me in for coffee, and they just want to share their story with me. One lady loved my shoes the other day, and so it's been a very pleasant, fun experience. I feel blessed to be a part of this community, even more so now than before. Because you get to meet these people. What I'm finding is that I'm meeting people that have something to offer as well. I talked to this gal on 9th Street the other day, and she for years was a behavioral interventionist, and she's like living on, just a small stipend right now, like $1,200 a month. And she goes, I don't have money to give, but I have a lot of ideas. I'm like, I'm going to be in touch.
Great.
Because that's the kind of stuff, right? Like, let's all, we can come together and be a community.
Definitely.
One question that you asked other people is like, okay, let's say you won, and 4 years down the road, what are you going to look at to be proud of? So I'm going to ask it.
Okay.
And what I'm hoping is that we're not only known for this pristine beauty of that we're surrounded by, but that we're also looked upon as the tiniest little city with the biggest heart, where the community members come together and everybody belongs, and that's super important to me.
Wow.
So
that's a wonderful vision. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That all? You got it?
Yep.
Cool. You going to write a story about this?
Yeah.
Okay.
that's kind of what she does. She's
just hanging out asking questions. Well, thank you very much, Valerie Starkey, coming in and talking to us about your candidacy for a District 2 Board of Supervisors seat. It is, 1 o'clock straight, 1 minute to 1 or so, here at KFUG. I'll do it again, KFUG LP Crescent City. That's our legal ID.